Hey everybody, this is Perch. Yes, this channel does talk a lot about the big two, Marvel and DC. It's because they are the big two, so they generate the majority of news and topics, and all over. That typically is what they do. However, there are other publishers out there. I make an attempt to try and cover more of those, talk more about them. It would help more if some of these other publishers, and I'm not talking the 1-2 person shops, but kind of this middle tier. It would help if I just want one of them to go, and not bad idea, because those ideas are often bad ideas. But I mean, I would like to see a company come out and say, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take a bold stand. I'm not going to do it the way the comic industry has been doing it for the last 30 years. I'm actually going to market, promote completely different. And I'm going to turn off the internet if I have to. So some of your marketing needs to go onto the internet, so that's not a completely good idea. But I'm going to turn off all the advice I get and just do what I think feels right and do something different. Please, somebody do that, because I think there's a lot of choices that get made because that's the way it's always been done, and it gets tiring because a lot of those ideas are crap, and we can tell they're crap. But anyway, but here's the question about one of those companies, Dark Horse. Now, I like Dark Horse. I have fond memories of Dark Horse, dating kind of back to their inception when they had a lot of the licensed properties, when they did the Legends imprint, when they did that superhero universe with Ghost and Barbed Wire and some of the others. I like Dark Horse. I like that they've tried to do a number of things. Dark Horse went quieter in 2000. They seem to be, I won't say hurt, but the kind of the dip in the industry seemed to take away some of the creative fighting spirit. Obviously you've got some good people over there leading Dark Horse right now, and it's an interesting company. But let's get to this mail and we can talk a little bit more about them. It says, hey Perch, it's easy to talk about comics like the old two, the old two, okay, and Image. However, I do feel like Dark Horse is making a lot of interesting moves no one's talking about. They are reprinting a lot of older manga titles, which should be a quick way to add cash to the business. Then got Eric Powell and Stan Sakai, both not only their own series, but as publishing imprints, if I am correct. Thoughts? Seems like Dark Horse might be setting up some big things soon. I want to do this video positive, but so maybe I get some of the negative stuff out of the way. The challenge with Dark Horse, I think, is that it's had big moves like that, or moves that feel like this before, but they never seem to go all the way to conclusion. It's like they get them set up, but then it stumbles somehow. It's like it just doesn't ever seem to go all the way to conclusion, or that they don't know exactly how to fully make the company work like it needs to. As a company, I mean, it's been around since the mid '80s. It's had a very, very long run. It does have some interesting people. I think the work with Eric Powell and the Goon is interesting. I don't think they really have an active Frank Miller relationship. They've had some, good stuff that they've done with him over the years. Obviously, Jeff Darrow and Mike Alfred, and there's been some good stuff. Stan Sakai, I think, is a great creator, does great work, doesn't move the needle in terms of big sales, big sales, but is great. And it's not all about sales. Obviously, you need creative talent. I think working with Sakai is pretty awesome. They obviously had the relationship with Joss Whedon before everyone dropped Whedon. I think that I think that they want to do more. I think that again they're trying to do things, but they're also have this kind of new, slightly new ownership structure, and via Embracer, and I think that's positioning the company to be different from what it is. I think I would love for that to be a net positive. The cynical part of me says that will be ultimately a net negative. It's going to put a ceiling on kind of what they can do. They've got, when Embracer bought it, it's got some pipelines, obviously, of video games. They have a first look deal with Netflix. They've got, when they announced the acquisition, it was kind of sad in a way because they talked about it has a long history in comics, but more importantly than that, they've got pipelines into Netflix and Universal, and it's like, I get that those are important. That was obviously why the company was purchased, but it was just a little disappointing, I think, to me to see that happen. Um, Dark Horse is a reliable company. What Dark Horse needs to do is be able to, shake itself up, I think, to some extent. I think if they were able to, do that, if they were able to, they need the appearance of something new. Now, you mentioned manga. I think that having an imprint or a library of manga titles is a good idea. I think there's nothing wrong with that. However, I think that again, the problem is you've got much larger players, namely Viz, that is the go-to company for manga. So no matter what you do, it might bring in some extra cash. It's not going. You're not going to be seen as kind of the leader in that space unless you get really lucky with one of the titles. But the way the system works, your odds of getting very lucky are extremely low. You know what's going to be popular via what's first printed in Japan, and there are companies ahead of Dark Horse that get kind of a first chance at going for that. So the odds of getting a runaway smash hit, critical hit of a manga title published by Dark Horse are just lower. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. It will bring in some extra cash, as you say, and I think it's it's a good idea to play in that space. But there's kind of the problem. Dark Horse needs to be the number one company at something. They need to be the destination point for, I don't know, horror, sci-fi. It's not going to be superheroes. That is taken. But what can Dark Horse be number one at? I think that's what they need to figure out, because being kind of they're currently cited as the fourth largest comic company. I'm not sure if that's entirely true anymore. I think that at various levels with some of the deals that Boom and IDW have done, I think, but they're in that mix. But they're not number one. They're not number two, and even Image has this problem as number three. Is that if you're not number one or number two, people kind of question what you're doing. Are you leading? What are you leading in? What is your route? Well, for Image, that's been, we are more creative friendly. We give more rights to the titles, so it's a destination point for creators who want to own their own work. That's their selling point. If you're at Marvel or DC, it's a destination point for people who want to tackle the biggest superhero properties in the country, with billion-dollar movies and a long legacy of comics. Okay, that's their pitch. So what's Dark Horse's pitch? They kind of do. They come here. We'll also give you some creator rights, but Image has got that. They've tried various things. We have more unique creative storytelling. Like, they've got to figure that out. I'm not saying it's not impossible. It's definitely not impossible. But that's the goal. If you're Dark Horse, sit down at a blank whiteboard or drawing pad and say, Dark Horse is the destination point for blank. For what? They need to figure that piece out. If they can figure that piece out, then they can start to claim, to be the leader in that territory. And if they can start to do that, people are going to start to look at them in a slightly different way, in a better way. And I think the seeds of the idea are probably already within Dark Horse. As you mentioned yourself, and this is where I'll be more positive, they have a lot of really good elements going on in that company. And this is, you don't necessarily want to sell in a negative, but they can also claim, we've been around since the mid-'80s. We know how to make comics. It sounds ridiculous, but we actually, unlike a lot of these smaller companies, we know we've stood the test of time. And we have, nice, big corporate money backing at this point, and that's going to help us a little bit too. But we've done a lot for comics, way more than you probably realize. And we're here to stay. Again, it's hard to market against a negative, but if you start to see some consolidation and more movement in the smaller companies, that's something they can do. One of the things that is true in comic books right now is a lot of the smaller publishers have acclimated to the idea that they are never going to be a big, strong comic company. They're going to be a company that kind of scrapes nickels by to produce, a comic here and a comic there, and have a bunch of books that are selling between like 2 and 5,000 copies each, and that's a living. That's kind of where their heads are at. So, as Dark Horse, could you portray a model where you're big, where you say we're not here to just produce 2 or 3 comics and hopefully make a little bit of money to afford a nice turkey for Thanksgiving. We are actually a legitimate big company, because they are. So how do they position themselves? We're not Marvel, we're not DC. We're better because we're more nimble. We can do things they can't do. We have this nice financial backing, and we're not going to go away. We're stable. I don't know. That would be. There was a time when Dark Horse was kind of fishing. Obviously, it came with Embracer, but there was at least some talk that Marvel might pick them up. That was an idea or a thing for a very short period of time, and I think that would have been an interesting idea. I think they would have screwed it up in a lot of ways, but that's they were looked at for a reason, both the licenses and expansion, everything, but sell on them being a legitimate stable company. That would have been a good plan. That could be a good plan. You could always do it. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.